bringing the people behind our food to life.
I'm going to make an Irish soda bread for you. Now, I know it's Christmas time, and so you might not be expecting Irish soda bread, but let's call it holiday soda bread. And let's call it holiday soda bread O'Rourke, because that's my maiden name. And that way we don't have to get too traditional, we don't have to be too picky about what goes in it, because I'm going to put some rather different ingredients into it. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, the nice thing about a soda bread is that it is a quick bread. So there's not a lot of time at the holidays. This is a really good thing to do. It has just a few simple ingredients. We're going to have flour and salt, soda, sugar, butter. These are our festive ingredients: dried cranberries, pecans, and chocolate. And then to tie it all together, we're going to, of course, put in some buttermilk. And we're also going to use some zest of orange. Now, this is a really quick bread to mix up, so I want to make sure that you have your oven preheated to 375 and have your baking pan ready. I put parchment on mine because it makes for really easy cleanup, and you're guaranteed to not have a bread loaf that sticks. However, if you don't have some parchment, just put a little butter or some shortening on there, and it's going to be fine. You'll see it'll come off really easily. Now, to start our bread, we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. And I have my 2 cups of flour. I have my 2 tablespoons of sugar, my 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and my 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to cut in with a pastry cutter 6 tablespoons of butter. That's 3/4 of a stick. This is a pastry cutter. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it's a really pretty handy little tool. And it works really well for pie crust and biscuits and scones. And as usual, if you have a food processor, you certainly can do this step in there. What we're looking for, as with any of those pastries I mentioned earlier, is the consistency of coarse crumbs. So we're mixing our butter in. There's still some big chunks left. We're just going to keep mixing. It takes a little while. In the food processor, it takes about 15 seconds. However, you do have to clean the food processor afterward. Sometimes your butter sticks. There, just clean it off. So we make sure we're getting it all cut in. And the other thing, of course, you can always do, if you do not have a food processor and if you do not have a pastry cutter, then you can use your hands like this. You can use one hand or you can use 2 hands. You can just work the butter in. Okay, so here we are. I've mixed this up really well, and that's ready to go. So we can just set that aside. And we're going to take our chocolate chips and our pecans and our cranberries, and we're just going to give them a rough chop. Otherwise, when you try to slice through your bread, you might end up trying to slice through a really big chunk of something. This will just make it easier. Also, it distributes the ingredients a little better. There, that looks pretty well chopped. Now I'm just going to set that aside because I still have to grate my orange peel. Just a standard small hole grater. Okay. We'll just put that in with our chips. All right, we are so close to having this ready to bake. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Because now we're going to take our bowl of ingredients and we're going to take about 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk. This is a cup measure, and I have it full because every once in a while I need to add a little extra. Kind of depends on your flour and how much moisture there is in it. So I'm going to put in about the 3/4 of a cup, and I'm just going to take my fork and stir. And what we're looking for is to get all the ingredients moist. One of the important things about this, and the reason I told you to preheat your oven, is that this particular bread relies only on chemical reaction between the baking soda and the buttermilk for leavening. So I'm pretty sure that most of you have taken vinegar and baking soda and put it into a bowl or a jar and watched it bubble up. Well, that's what's going to happen here. So now our dough is really nice and moist, you can see, like that. It's all holding together just from starting with the fork. And now we're just going to knead it in the bowl. Kneading means that you're just basically taking your dough and sort of folding it over itself. You're going to knead for about 20 seconds. And you can see it's coming in together into a nice tight little ball. And that's pretty good. So there you go. We have a nice ball of dough. So now we're just going to shape it into a circle as well as best we can and flatten it out just slightly. And go ahead and put it onto your prepared pan. Now, the tradition is to cut an X in the top of your soda bread. So we're going to do that. The sharper your knife, the more cleanly this is going to rise up in the end. So you want to just make a nice quick cut, 1/2 inch deep across the top of the bread, and a quick cut, 1/2 inch deep. And then we just need to put a little bit of milk. I still have a little bit of buttermilk left. This is in my container here. You can use milk, you can use buttermilk, you can use cream. You could use melted butter, doesn't really matter. And just brush it. And that's ready for the oven. So now we put our bread into the oven. It's going to be in there for 40 to 50 minutes. Well, our bread was in the oven for 40 to 50 minutes. It really depends on your oven. And as you can see, it turned out a beautiful golden brown. And luckily, none of the little chips or cranberries or pecans got burnt in the process. And that's because my oven had really nice even heat, got a really nice even rise. If you do end up with some burned cranberries or chocolate chips on top, it just means that your oven heat is probably not very even, and you probably maybe had your bread too high in the oven. Anyway, and you can just pick those little burned pieces off if necessary. After 40 or 50 minutes, the way you test your bread for doneness is you, obviously not with your bare hand, but with the hot pad, you pick the bread up and you do this, and you should hear that nice hollow sound. If it sounds kind of wet or damp, or if it feels pretty heavy, put it back in the oven for another 10 minutes or so and then give it the test again. You want to let your bread cool if you want to slice it really beautifully, because otherwise it's just going to be crumble. If you want to eat it hot, that's fine. You can eat it hot, but don't expect it to make little nice slices like we're going to be able to get now. We're going to take our serrated bread knife and we're just going to make a nice slice through the crust. And look at that. Look at how beautiful it is. You can see the beautiful buttery holes all risen. You can see the nice little flecks of the chocolate and the cranberries and the pecans. This is just great. This is not a bread you're going to be able to slice really thinly. You're going to have to slice it about 3/4 of an inch because it is so full of fruits and nuts. This bread tastes really good toasted. So you can remember that for any leftovers you might have. I'm going to say this loaf is going to serve about 6 people. There's our beautiful bread, ready for our holiday platter. So here's a rich, beautiful Irish American soda bread that you can share with your friends, a new tradition from my house to yours. Happy holidays.
What I love about baking bread is the magic of the process. I'm amazed still every day of taking these 3 or 4 ingredients, flour, water, salt, and manipulating them in a way that we create this magnificent loaf of bread.